Okay, so we're just getting ready to install the hose to PVC adapter, and the way we can do that is to come up from underneath. It's not recommended that this panel be removed once the cabinet's installed. The screws are factory installed using a torque driver, preset torque drivers. So the best way to do this is just to simply apply our PVC cement to the part, and again ensure that this is facing the front of the cabinet. Okay. Now I'm going to take the cement and sparingly apply it to the inside of the part, and then I'm going to put it on roughly facing that way and then give it a quarter turn, just so that it sets properly. And I can do this by looking through the cabinet, pushing up on the part, and then giving it that quarter turn so it's straight. And that's it. We'll let that set up, and then we'll go on to our next phase of installation. Okay, our next phase of installation is going to be to connect the wiring to the cabinet, both the low voltage terminal wiring and the ground fault power supply circuit. The manual actually, at the present time anyway, states to put the liners on prior to doing this step, but if, for example, we're undoing our switch plate cover here and we happen to drop a screw down into the cabinet, well, we're kind of pooched. So what we're going to do is leave the liners off until the very end of the installation, and then we can make sure we've got the cabinet thoroughly clean before we put the liners on. So at the present time, I'm going to first connect the supply line, and that basically involves removing the two screws that hold the switch cover plate on that is mounted on the underside of the cabinet here. Inside, see, I just dropped a screw. That could have gone straight into the opening, and now I'd be peeling the liners off in order to gain access to that screw. So the next step is to, once the plate is off, we're just going to peel off enough of the insulation. There's not a whole lot of room in there. There goes the screw again. And I'm not too worried about it because I can see it. I know where it is. So we'll put that there for now. And I'm going to try and get just enough Romex into the cabinet so that we can anchor it and make it nice and secure. So we'll feed that nicely into the, just get the insulation into the cabinet and anchor the Romex connector down. Okay, we don't need near this amount of wiring coming through, so we'll cut that back to roughly 4 or 5 inches coming out of the box. And we'll splice that back. We do have a ground lead on here, although this system is fully plastic for the most part. There is protection circuitry inside the controller for the retractor unit, and it does require a ground path for that protection. So we will connect our ground lead first. We'll need some marrettes to finish this installation, and the recommendation is to use a little bit of electrical tape. Okay, so we're back again. We've got some marrettes, and we're just going to strip the wiring back a little bit here, so we can make our actual electrical connections. said earlier, we'll start with the ground lead, wrap that on and tie it in. Just make sure it's on there well. And we will apply a little bit of tape to the bottom of the morettes. In some jurisdictions, this is a requirement. We wrap it once. We'll put it inside the opening, up and out of the way. Next, we'll do the neutral or the white lead. Now, we're ready to put the switch plate on, and it does matter which way this goes on. You'll notice that there's an on and an off designation on the switch. That may be in the form of words, or it could be the standard symbols for on and off, like an O and a 1. In any case, the on function must be to the right when the switch plate is reinstalled. If it's not, the retractor works interactively with the switch when it's slid in and out of the cabinet. And so typically when the retractor is slid outward, it'll turn off. And when it's slid inward, it'll go back on again. It's kind of a built-in self disconnect, automatic disconnect. So just ensure that that on function is on the switch is facing the right of the cabinet. So we're going to carefully place this back in, and these screws will strip if you over tighten them. They are self-tappers and self-tap machine screws. They don't require very much torque to set the plate in place. Just snug them up enough that the plate is flush and there's a bit of resistance to turning it. So I'm barely turning that screw. If you happen to strip the screw on the one side, don't use anything longer than a 1/4 inch screw, because, especially with a point on it, because you'll run into the wiring that runs through this wire chase. These screws and this hardware were picked specifically for that purpose, so that there'd be no chance of damage. So that pretty well completes our connection of the power supply to the unit. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the low voltage terminals that were supplied, and really that's just a matter of stripping and crimping. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect these 1/4 inch Burndy electrical terminals. These are spade lugs. They're the male version of the spade lugs, an amp terminal, typical garden variety amp terminal, and they're just a crimp-on style. Not much more to say about these, except that these do have to be male because they connect to the female connectors that are provided on the retractor unit. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've stapled the back liner on, and we've come up roughly a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch up the back side, and we've run a piece of tape across the back side to help seal the cabinet to prevent dust and drywall dust and things like that from getting into the cabinet. So we're at the last stage here where we're going to mount the last stage of mounting liners, and the thing we need to do now is make sure that there's nothing left inside the cabinet, like clippings or whatever, sawdust and that sort of thing, before we apply this. So we're going to use the same process that we did before in terms of spacing roughly staples every 5 inches and making it as flush as we can make it to the studs. As far as placing this liner, goes, center it horizontally on the studs as best as possible. And again, come up at least a ½ inch overlap or so, so that we have the cabinet come down past the liner. So get one staple in just to get started. And we'll just try and make sure that's going to be square all the way down. One of the things that can easily happen is the liner will wander out on you, and before you know it, it will be all crooked on the bottom end. The important thing is just to make sure the space is covered properly. So we'll staple, put one more staple in here, and we'll work our way down. Find it nicer to come down both sides. A little easier to work at your normal comfortable height before you get way down to the bottom. Okay, there. And as before, we'll take a hammer and we'll go ahead and tap those staples in just to make them flush so they don't interfere with our drywall. And the very last thing we'll do is we'll put our cover on the front, which is the cardboard that hopefully you didn't discard. And we'll use some tape just to seal it up. And we'll put tape over here to seal this up as well. Okay, just for safekeeping, I'm going to put the hose cabinet cover in place, and although it is attached to a chain, it'll just stop it from moving around, bouncing around, that sort of thing. And that just sits nicely that way. And the other thing we need to do is we need to install the protective cover. This will help keep the drywall dust out and any other dust that happens to be in the air as a result of our finishing. So this just slides in place like so. And we'll just simply use some masking tape to seal things up. Can easily be peeled off at the end. We can leave this masking tape on. This won't hurt if it stays on anyway. And this will also help keep any other potential contaminants out. And that completes the installation of the rough-in cabinet for the docket hose management system.